If you've been waiting for a massive economic shakeup, 2026 just delivered the headline of the decade. President Trump has officially doubled down on a plan that could send $2,000 stimulus checks, or what he's calling a tariff dividend, directly into the pockets of millions of Americans. This isn't just a rumor anymore. The administration is framing 2026 as the largest tax refund season in history, and the implications for your bank account are astronomical. But here's the catch that the mainstream headlines are buried in. There is a massive legal and legislative battle brewing. While the White House suggests this windfall from global tariffs belongs to the people, economists are sounding the alarm on a $500 billion price tag that could trigger a standoff with Congress. Are you eligible? Will it come as a direct deposit, a tax credit, or a Trump account for your kids? If you are among the 80% of middle to lower income households being targeted for this relief, you need to know the specific timeline before the 2026 midterms. From the elimination of taxes on tips and overtime to this new $2,000 proposal, the rules of the American economy are being rewritten in real time. We're breaking down the official White House statements, the IRS's new One Big Beautiful Bill provisions, and exactly what you need to do to ensure you don't miss out on your slice of this trillion-dollar shift. The clock is ticking and your financial future is on the line. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and claim what's yours, hit that like button right now and let's get into the details. To understand where we are right now, we have to look at the sheer scale of the shift happening in Washington. For decades, the American tax system has operated on a predictable, if frustrating, cycle of incremental changes. But as we move deeper into 2026, the administration has pivoted toward a high-stakes, high-reward economic strategy that centers on one primary engine, the global tariff. The president's vision for a $2,000 tariff dividend is essentially an attempt to bypass traditional taxation and return what he calls stolen wealth directly to the people. This isn't a standard stimulus package like we saw during the pandemic. It's a fundamental rebranding of trade policy into a direct-to-consumer cash flow. The White House is arguing that because these tariffs are being collected from foreign entities, though economists will tell you the cost is often passed to the consumer, the revenue should be treated like a corporate dividend where the American citizens are the shareholders. This has created a sense of urgency that is palpable across the country, as millions of families are trying to figure out if they are about to receive a life-changing direct deposit, or if this is simply a political chess move ahead of the 2026 midterms. The numbers being tossed around in the Oval Office are enough to make any accountant's head spin. By targeting middle and lower income households, the administration is looking at a pool of over 270 million potential recipients. If the math holds at $2,000 per person, we are talking about a $500 billion to $600 billion payout. The controversy lies in where that money is actually coming from. Recent Treasury reports indicate that while tariff revenue is at historic highs, it's currently projected to bring in about $300 billion annually. This creates a massive funding gap that is at the heart of the current battle in Congress. The White House has suggested that they can bridge this gap by using the One Big Beautiful Bill (OBBBA) provisions, which reorganized how the IRS handles large-scale refunds. This has led to the claim that 2026 will be the largest tax refund season in U.S. history. We are already seeing the IRS release guidance on retroactive credits that could boost the average refund by $1,000 or more. But the $2,000 dividend is the whale that everyone is hunting for. One of the most critical updates for 2026 is the legal theory the administration is testing. Traditionally, the power of the purse belongs to Congress. They are the ones who must authorize spending. However, the president's legal team is exploring an executive pathway that treats these payments not as spending, but as a rebate of collected duties. If they can successfully argue that they are simply returning excess revenue collected under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, they might try to bypass a deadlocked Senate entirely. This is why you're hearing so much noise about no Congress needed. It's a high-wire act that could lead all the way to the Supreme Court, And for the average American, it means the difference between a check arriving in June or a legal battle that lasts for years. The administration is essentially betting that the political pressure of the upcoming midterms will force even their harshest critics to sign off on the plan, fearing the wrath of voters who were promised a windfall. Beyond the $2,000 dividend, there are several other components to this 2026 affordability blitz that are already in motion. We have the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime provisions, which are fundamentally changing the take-home pay for service workers and blue-collar laborers. The IRS has officially launched Tax Tip 2026-05, which provides a roadmap for how workers can claim these exemptions. This alone is acting as a stealth stimulus, effectively giving a raise to millions of people without costing employers a dime. Then, there's the introduction of Trump accounts for newborns, a $1,000 investment account intended to give every American child a head start. While these don't have the immediate punch of a $2,000 check, they represent a broader effort to move the country toward a citizen ownership model where the government's revenue from trade and efficiency is redistributed to the domestic population. However, we have to address the elephant in the room: inflation. The primary criticism from the Federal Reserve and independent think tanks is that injecting $500 billion into the economy while simultaneously raising tariffs on imported goods is a recipe for a price spike. The administration's rebuttal is that by decoupling from foreign manufacturing and incentivizing Made in America through new auto loan interest deductions and rural opportunity zones, they are increasing domestic supply to meet the new demand. They are essentially trying to spend their way into independence. This creates an incredibly volatile environment for your personal finances. If the stimulus checks arrive, but the price of a gallon of milk or a new truck jumps by 15%, the net benefit to your household could be zero. This is why staying informed on the timing of these checks is so vital. If you know a $2,000 per person windfall is coming in mid-2026, your strategy for debt, large purchases, and even your 401k contributions should shift immediately to capitalize on the moment before the market adjusts. We are also seeing a massive surge in stimulus scams that you need to be aware of. Because the news cycle is moving so fast, bad actors are sending out fake tariff rebate portals and direct deposit forms. The IRS has made it clear they will never text you a link to claim your dividend. Any legitimate payment will be handled through the same channels as your regular tax refund. If you haven't set up direct deposit with the IRS yet, 2026 is the year to do it. The administration has indicated that those with verified digital accounts will be the first to receive any potential dividend, likely using the new phased processing approach the IRS recently revealed. This new schedule is designed to prevent fraud, but it also means that if your paperwork isn't perfect, you could be stuck in a manual review queue for months while your neighbors are already spending their checks. The political stakes of this plan are higher than anything we've seen in recent history. If the president delivers on this $2,000 promise by the summer of 2026, it would likely be the most significant redistribution of wealth in a single year since the Great Depression. It would effectively rewrite the social contract, moving from a system of tax and spend to tariff and rebate. But if the legal challenges mount or the math fails to hold up under congressional scrutiny, the backlash could be just as historic. This is why the administration is framing this as a national emergency regarding affordability. They are using the leverage of the squeezed middle class to push through radical changes to the tax code. For you, the viewer, the goal is to filter out the noise and focus on the mechanics. You need to be looking at your 2025 Adjusted Gross Income, AGI, because that is the baseline the administration is using to define working families. If your AGI is under $100,000 as a single filer or $200,000 as a couple, you are in the primary target zone for this $2,000 windfall. As we look at the legislative calendar for the remainder of 2026, the month of May stands out as the potential go time. This is when the Treasury will have a final tally of the spring tax collections and a clearer picture of the tariff revenue from the first quarter. If the one big beautiful bill produces the surplus the White House is expecting, we could see the Tariff Dividend Act hit the floor of the House with unprecedented speed. The strategy is simple. Put the money in people's pockets while they are still feeling the largest tax refund season ever. This creates a cumulative effect where the average household feels significantly wealthier in 2026 than they did just 12 months prior. It's a massive gamble on the future of the US dollar and the stability of global trade. But for the millions of Americans struggling with the K-shaped economy, it represents the first real sign of a financial floor being built beneath them. The conversation is also shifting toward how this dividend interacts with other social programs. There are questions about whether these checks will count as income for things like SNAP or Medicaid eligibility. In previous stimulus rounds, these payments were excluded to ensure they didn't hurt the people they were meant to help. The 2026 proposal seems to follow that same logic, classifying the tariff dividend as a refundable tax credit rather than gross income. This is a technical but crucial detail, as it allows seniors on Social Security and families on assistance to keep the full $2,000 without risking their other benefits. It's a carefully crafted piece of policy designed to maximize its impact on the ground, while minimizing the bureaucratic red tape that usually slows these things down. What makes this different from the 2020 and 2021 checks is the source of the moral authority the White House is claiming. During the pandemic, the checks were an emergency rescue. In 2026, they are being framed as a rightful share. The rhetoric coming out of the White House is all about America First revenue. They are telling voters that for years, other countries have taken advantage of American markets, and now those countries are paying a premium to access our consumers. That premium, the argument goes, doesn't belong to the government to grow the bureaucracy. It belongs to the families who have been paying higher prices for those goods. This narrative is incredibly sticky, and it's why the $2,000 figure has become so iconic. It's not just a number, it's a symbol of a new economic era where the dividend of the nation's success is shared directly with its citizens. As you prepare for the coming months, the best thing you can do is get your financial house in order. Ensure your 2025 tax filing is accurate, confirm your bank details with the IRS, and keep a close eye on the Where's My Refund portal, which is being updated to include a dividend tracker feature for 2026. We are witnessing a historic experiment in real time. Whether this plan rewrites U.S. history as a triumph of affordability economics or serves as a cautionary tale of fiscal overreach remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The $2,000 tariff dividend is the most significant financial story of the year, and the moves you make right now will determine how much of that windfall actually ends up in your pocket. The battle for the American wallet has officially begun, and the results will define the economic landscape for the next decade. To truly grasp the magnitude of what is happening in 2026, you have to look past the political theater and focus on the cold, hard mechanics of the tariff dividend plan. This isn't just a campaign promise anymore. The administration is framing this as a fundamental shift in how the United States government generates and distributes wealth. For over a century, the federal government has relied on the internal revenue of its citizens, your income, your payroll taxes, and your spending, to keep the lights on. But the president's new strategy for 2026 seeks to flip that script entirely by replacing domestic tax burdens with foreign trade duties. The tariff dividend is the centerpiece of this new American economy, and the proposal to put at least $2,000 into the hands of moderate and middle-income families is being heralded by the White House as a return on investment for the American people. They are arguing that if foreign nations want access to the world's most lucrative consumer market, they have to pay a premium, and that premium belongs to you, not to the expansion of the federal bureaucracy. The specifics of this plan are currently being hammered out in the most intense policy debates Washington has seen in decades. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has confirmed that the administration is targeting working families, which generally points toward those earning under $100,000 for individuals or $200,000 for joint filers. However, the exact income phase-out remains a point of massive contention. We are hearing from insiders that the White House is pushing for a clean distribution, meaning they want to avoid the messy, tiered eligibility that defined the pandemic-era stimulus. They want 2026 to be remembered as the year of the universal American payout, where nearly every household that isn't in the top 5% of earners receives a direct deposit. The urgency here is driven by the 2026 midterms. The administration knows that if they can successfully deliver these checks by the mid-year deadline, it would represent a historic political victory that would be nearly impossible for the opposition to ignore. But we have to talk about the massive funding gap that economists are currently obsessing over. The math for a $2,000 per person payout is staggering. If the dividend is extended to both adults and children, like the previous economic impact payments, the total cost could soar towards $600 billion. According to current Treasury data, while tariff revenue has spiked to record levels, it is currently bringing in roughly $300 billion annually. This means the administration is looking for an additional $300 billion to make the math work for a full $2,000 payment. This is where the One Big Beautiful Bill, OBBBA, comes into play. The White House is looking to combine tariff revenue with massive efficiency cuts from the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, to bridge that gap. They are essentially trying to build a super surplus by gutting administrative waste and reallocating those funds directly into the tariff dividend pool. It is a high-stakes gamble that requires every moving part of the government to work in perfect synchronization, something that rarely happens in the halls of power. The biggest hurdle standing between you and that $2,000 check isn't just the math, it's the legal battle currently unfolding at the Supreme Court. The administration has been using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, of 1977 to bypass Congress and implement these sweeping tariffs. However, multiple lower courts have already ruled that this is an overreach of executive power, claiming that only Congress has the constitutional authority to levy taxes and duties. If the Supreme Court upholds these lower court rulings, the entire tariff structure could collapse, and the government might even be forced to refund the money already collected to the importers. This would effectively kill the dividend plan before a single check is ever printed. The White House has countered this by arguing that trade policy is a matter of national security, which gives the president nearly unlimited discretion under IEEPA. For you, the observer, this means your bank account is essentially a wait-and-see hostage of the judicial system. If the court rules in favor of the administration this spring, the floodgates for the mid-2026 payments will likely open overnight. If the plan does move forward, the IRS is already preparing for what they call the phased dividend launch. Unlike the chaotic stimulus rollouts of the past, the 2026 plan is expected to utilize the new verified digital account system. If you have an active, verified account on the IRS website with your direct deposit information already on file, you will be in Tier 1. These individuals are expected to see their funds within 72 hours of the bill being signed or the executive order being finalized. Tier 2 will consist of those who have filed 2025 taxes but don't have direct deposit, and they will receive the old-fashioned paper checks, which could take up to 8 weeks to arrive. The administration is using this tiered system as an incentive to get more Americans into the digital tax system, which they claim will reduce fraud and speed up future dividends as the tariff revenue continues to grow. We also have to consider the stealth stimulus components that are already being baked into the 2026 tax season. The no tax on tips and no tax on overtime rules are projected to save the average service worker nearly $1,500 this year alone. When you combine that with the potential $2,000 tariff dividend, many working families could see their total government-induced windfall exceed $5,000 in a single calendar year. This is what the president means when he calls 2026 the greatest tax refund season in history. It's not just one check. It's a series of overlapping policy changes designed to maximize the liquid cash in your pocket. The goal is to stimulate the domestic economy by giving people the money to pay off high-interest debt, invest in the Made in America sectors, or finally make that down payment on a home that has been out of reach due to the inflation of previous years. However, The risk of affordability inflation is very real. If the government injects $600 billion into the economy while simultaneously raising the cost of imported goods through tariffs, there is a legitimate fear that prices will simply rise to meet the new supply of cash. The administration's counter-argument is that by incentivizing domestic production through rural opportunity zones and the new auto loan interest deductions, they are creating a supply-side boom that will keep prices stable. They are betting that American factories will ramp up production so quickly that the new cash won't cause a spike in costs. It's a bold theory that essentially ignores traditional Keynesian economics in favor of a citizen dividend model. For you, the strategy remains the same. Treat any potential $2,000 check as a debt-crushing tool or a savings booster, rather than just extra spending money. The market will likely be volatile as these checks hit, and those who use the windfall to solidify their financial foundations will be the ones who actually come out ahead. Another layer to the 2026 update is the Trump accounts for children. The Treasury has recently issued guidance on these accounts, which are set to receive a one-time $1,000 pilot program contribution for eligible children born between 2025 and 2028. While this isn't the same as the $2,000 cash dividend, it shows the administration's commitment to a multi-generational wealth strategy. Parents will be able to manage these accounts, but the funds are restricted to investments in American equities, specifically those that track the S&P 500. It's a way of turning every American child into a shareholder in the country's success, funded by the very tariffs that are currently the subject of so much debate. By July 4, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the United States, the administration wants to have millions of these accounts active, creating a sense of national ownership that they hope will redefine the American dream for the next century. The political maneuvering surrounding this $2,000 check is also creating some strange bedfellows in Congress. We are seeing populist Republicans and progressive Democrats find rare common ground on the idea of direct cash payments, though they disagree vehemently on the source of the funding. The progressives want the checks funded by a billionaire wealth tax, while the administration is holding firm on the foreign tariff model. This pincer movement on the traditional fiscal conservatives in both parties is making the passage of a $2,000 rebate more likely than many experts initially thought. If the Tariff Dividend Act can get enough bipartisan support to survive a filibuster, it could be the rare piece of legislation that sails through the House and Senate in record time, driven by the sheer popularity of the proposal among the voting public. As we move toward the mid-year point, the Where's My Dividend tracker is expected to go live on the IRS website. This will be the definitive source for your eligibility status and your estimated payment date. If you find that you are ineligible, despite falling under the income thresholds, it may be due to a discrepancy in your 2025 tax return. Many people are still making errors on their working family's tax credit filings, which is the baseline data the IRS is using to verify recipients. This is why it is so critical to have a tax professional or a high-quality software package review your 2025 filings now. A simple error in how you reported your dependents or your overtime exemptions could disqualify you from the $2,000 dividend, leaving you to watch from the sidelines as the rest of the country receives their payout. The 2026 economic landscape is being built on the fly, and the rules are changing almost weekly. From the no Congress needed executive pathway to the one big beautiful bill funding strategy, the administration is using every lever at its disposal to deliver on the tariff dividend promise. This is a rewrite of U.S. history because it moves the focus of the government away from collecting from citizens and toward collecting for citizens. Whether this leads to a new era of prosperity or a massive inflationary headache is the trillion-dollar question that 2026 will answer. But for now, the momentum is clearly on the side of the dividend. The president has made it clear. He wants 2026 to be the year of the American consumer, and the $2,000 check is the vehicle he intends to use to get there. Everything we are seeing points to a summer of 2026 that will be unlike any other in financial history. If the Supreme Court provides the green light and the IRS digital systems hold up under the load, we will see a transfer of wealth that is unprecedented in its speed and its source. This isn't just about a one-time payment. It's about a new philosophy of governance where the American people are treated as the primary beneficiaries of the nation's trade power. You have to stay vigilant, keep your records updated, and ignore the stimulus scams that are already clogging up the internet. The tariff dividend is the real deal, and as we count down the months until the mid-year rollout, the pressure on Washington to deliver is only going to grow. This is the update the entire country has been waiting for, and the impact on your personal economy could be the most significant shift you experience in your lifetime.